I never thought my wedding day would become someone else's fairy tale. But as I stood there in my white dress, watching my husband-to-be push me aside for my pregnant sister, I realized something important. I had been preparing for this moment for 3 months. The morning started like any bride's dream. Hair perfectly curled, makeup flawless, dress fitting like it was made by angels. But unlike other brides, I wasn't nervous about saying, "I do." I was nervous about what would happen when I said, "I knew." See, most brides spend their wedding morning worried about flowers or photographers. I spent mine checking that the recording device in my bouquet was working properly. While other brides practiced their vows, I was rehearsing my speech about betrayal. Because when you know your fiancé has been sleeping with your sister for months, your wedding day becomes less about "till death do us part" and more about "till truth do us part." Let me take you back to where this really started. 3 months before my wedding day, I was living in what I thought was premarital bliss. Michael and I had been together for 4 years, engaged for 1, and everything seemed perfect. We had our dream house picked out, our honeymoon planned, and a future that looked straight out of a romance novel. My sister Mia had always been the family favorite, younger, prettier, more spontaneous. While I was the responsible one building a career in marketing, she was the free spirit who couldn't hold a job for more than 6 months. But family is family, right? So when she started hanging around our house more often, helping with wedding planning, I thought it was sweet. Finally, my little sister was growing up and wanting to be part of something important. The first red flag should have been when Michael started working late more often. "Wedding stress," he'd say, kissing my forehead before heading out to another client meeting. The second red flag was when Mia suddenly had money for new clothes and a new car, despite being unemployed for 3 months. But the third red flag? That's the one that changed everything. I came home early from work one Tuesday, excited to show Michael the final cake designs. The house was quiet, but I heard voices in the kitchen. Mia's laugh, the one she uses when she's flirting. Michael's voice, lower and softer than he ever used with me anymore. I stood in the hallway, wedding binders in my arms, and listened to my sister tell my fiancé that she was scared about the baby. Baby. The word hit me like ice water. I pressed myself against the wall, hardly breathing as they talked about doctor's appointments and morning sickness and what they were going to do. Mia was 3 months pregnant, with Michael's child, and they were planning to figure out how to handle this after my wedding. After my wedding. They were going to let me marry him, knowing he had gotten my sister pregnant. They were going to let me walk down that aisle, say those vows, and start a marriage built on a lie that would destroy me when I eventually found out. Because they both knew I would find out. They just wanted to secure the wedding first, the house, the financial stability, before dropping their bomb. I backed out of the house quietly, sat in my car for 20 minutes, and cried exactly once. Then I dried my eyes, pulled out my phone, and started making calls. Not to cancel the wedding, to save myself. The first call was to my friend Sarah, a private investigator who owed me a favor from college. "I need you to follow my fiancé," I told her, "and I need documentation of everything." The second call was to a divorce attorney because I wanted to know exactly where I stood legally. The third call was to my bank because if Michael thought he could play games with my heart, he needed to know that I didn't play games with my money. For 3 months, I became an actress worthy of an Oscar. Every morning, I woke up and played the excited bride. I discussed flower arrangements while knowing my fiancé was texting my sister. I tasted cakes while planning my exit strategy. I sent out wedding invitations while collecting evidence of their affair. Sarah provided me with photos, texts, hotel receipts, restaurant bills. Michael was good at hiding things from me, but he wasn't good at hiding things from a professional. By the second month, I had enough evidence to prove adultery in court, which would void our prenuptial agreement and protect my assets. By the third month, I had a complete timeline of their relationship, financial records showing he'd been using our joint account for their dates, and even medical records proving the pregnancy timeline. But the most important thing I collected wasn't evidence. It was strength. Every day that I pretended not to know, I grew stronger. Every fake smile, every "yes, honey," when he lied to my face. Every hug I gave Mia while she carried his child. It all built something inside me that I didn't know I had. Not anger, though that was there too. Not hatred, though that was definitely present. It built power. I started moving money, not stealing, nothing illegal, just protecting what was mine. The joint account we'd opened for wedding expenses. I documented every penny that went to Mia's medical bills and transferred the rest to my personal account. The credit cards in my name that he'd been using, I set spending alerts and documented every charge that wasn't wedding-related. The house we'd put a down payment on, I made sure my name was the only one on the mortgage application. While they thought they were playing me, I was playing chess. The wedding planning continued like a bizarre theater production. Michael would sit beside me at cake tastings, holding my hand while probably thinking about Mia. He'd look at flowers and nod appropriately while mentally calculating how to support a pregnant mistress and a wife. He'd discuss our honeymoon plans while knowing our marriage wouldn't last through the reception. And Mia? She was the best maid of honor a sister could ask for. She helped address invitations, organized my bridal shower, and even gave a speech about how happy she was that I'd found my soulmate, all while carrying his child and planning to steal my life. But they forgot something important about me. I'm not just the responsible sister, the reliable one, the one who always puts family first. I'm also the sister who never loses. I graduated valedictorian, got promoted twice in 3 years, and built a 6-figure savings account before age 30. When I commit to something, I win. And I had committed to making sure their betrayal would cost them everything. 2 weeks before the wedding, I made my final preparations. I met with my attorney and finalized the divorce papers, pre-signed and ready to be filed. I hired a discreet security team for the wedding, ostensibly for crowd control, but actually to serve papers if needed. I arranged for a backup photographer who would focus specifically on capturing reactions. And I wrote 2 speeches, one for the bride I was supposed to be, and one for the woman I had become. The night before the wedding, Michael held me and whispered about our future together. He talked about the children we'd have, the life we'd build, the love that would last forever. I listened and smiled and thought about the children he'd already made with my sister. I thought about the life he'd already destroyed. And I thought about the love that had died 3 months ago in my kitchen, when I heard him planning my humiliation with the person I trusted most. "I love you," he said as he kissed me goodnight. "I know exactly who you are," I replied, and he smiled like he'd received a compliment. That morning, as I sat in the bridal suite getting my hair and makeup done, surrounded by bridesmaids who thought they were preparing me for the happiest day of my life, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. Not because I was getting married, but because I was finally going to stop pretending. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Everything is in position. Are you ready?" I looked at myself in the mirror. White dress, perfect makeup, hair like a princess. I looked exactly like a bride should look, but I felt like a warrior preparing for battle. "Ready?" I texted back. The wedding venue looked like something from a magazine. White roses everywhere, string quartet playing softly, guests dressed in their finest clothes. Our families sat on opposite sides of the aisle, all of them believing they were about to witness a beautiful union. Michael stood at the altar in his black tuxedo, looking nervous but handsome. Mia sat in the front row, her pregnancy barely showing under a carefully chosen dress, playing the supportive sister perfectly. None of them knew that in less than an hour, this fairy tale wedding would become their worst nightmare. As I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, I saw Michael's face light up with what looked like genuine love. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. He probably did love me in whatever broken way he was capable of loving. But love without honesty isn't love at all. It's just another form of lying. I reached the altar, kissed my father's cheek, and took my place beside the man who thought he was about to become my husband. The minister opened his book and began the ceremony that would never be completed. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Michael and Amanda in holy matrimony." I stood there, bouquet in hand, recording device capturing every word, and smiled like the blushing bride I was supposed to be. But inside, I was counting down the minutes until I would stop being their victim and start being their reckoning. because they were about to learn that the quiet, responsible sister had been taking notes, and class was about to begin. The minister was halfway through the opening remarks when I saw Michael's hands start shaking. Not the normal groom nerves, but the tremor of a man who's been living a lie for so long he's forgotten what truth feels like. He kept glancing at Mia in the front row, and I could see the exact moment when his nerve broke. "If anyone has a reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace," the minister said, following the traditional script. This was supposed to be the moment when everyone stays silent and we move forward with the vows. Instead, Michael turned to me with eyes full of panic and whispered, "Amanda, I can't do this." The guests couldn't hear him, but I could, and so could the recording device hidden in my bouquet. "What do you mean?" I whispered back, playing my part perfectly. "I'm in love with someone else," he said, his voice getting louder. "I'm sorry, but I can't marry you." The murmur from the crowd started low, confused whispers rippling through the pews. But Michael wasn't done. He looked at Mia, took a deep breath, and made the announcement that 3 months of investigation had prepared me for. "Mia is pregnant," he said, his voice carrying across the church now. "She's pregnant with my child, and I love her." "I'm sorry, Amanda, but this is wrong. We can't do this." The gasps from our families were audible, sharp intakes of breath, and someone's muffled, "Oh my God." But Michael still wasn't finished with his performance. He actually put his hands on my shoulders and pushed me aside, gently but definitively, creating space between us at the altar. Then he gestured toward Mia and said the words that I'd been waiting 3 months to hear in public. "Why don't you join the audience? This is Mia's moment now." The church erupted. My mother screamed. His mother started crying. My father stood up like he was going to charge the altar. Mia sat frozen in her seat, probably realizing this wasn't how they'd planned for this to happen, but I just smiled. "Actually," I said, my voice calm and clear, carrying easily through the church's acoustics, "I have something to say first." I walked to the microphone the minister had been using, and the recording device in my bouquet captured every word that came next. "Thank you all for coming to what was supposed to be my wedding," I began, looking out at the sea of shocked faces. "You're right, Michael. This would be wrong. It would be wrong to marry someone who's been cheating on me for 6 months." The crowd noise shifted from confused murmurs to complete silence. "It would be wrong to marry someone who used our joint wedding account to pay for his mistress's prenatal appointments. It would be wrong to start a marriage with someone who's been planning to leave me right after the honeymoon, once the house and finances were secured in his name." Michael's face went white. "Amanda, don't what? Don't tell the truth? Don't share the evidence I've been collecting for 3 months?" I reached into my small bridal purse and pulled out a remote control. "Don't play the recordings!" I clicked the remote and the church's sound system came alive with Michael's voice from 2 weeks ago. "Once we're married and I'm on the house deed, we can figure out how to handle the divorce. Amanda's got that marketing job, so even with alimony, we'll be fine." Then Mia's voice. "What if she finds out before the wedding?" Michael again. "She won't. Amanda's too trusting. She sees what she wants to see." The silence in the church was deafening. I let the recording play for another 30 seconds, them discussing my gullibility, their plans for our house, how they'd been laughing about my excitement over wedding plans. When I clicked it off, Michael looked like he might vomit. Mia was crying, but not the tears of a remorseful woman. These were the tears of someone who'd been caught. "I've known about the affair for 3 months, I continued, addressing our families and friends who sat in stunned silence. "I've known about the pregnancy, the lies, the financial manipulation, all of it. And I let you plan this humiliation because I wanted everyone who loves me to see exactly who you really are." I pulled out a folder from beneath my bouquet. Wedding photographers are very accommodating when you explain you have special documents you need accessible. "Michael, these are divorce papers. Adultery voids our prenuptial agreement, which means you get nothing. The house you thought you'd be moving into next week, it's in my name only. The joint accounts you've been draining, I documented every transaction and moved my money 3 weeks ago." His mother stood up in the audience. "You can't do this. Not here. Not like this." "Actually, Mrs. Thompson, I can. Your son chose to humiliate me in front of everyone I love. I'm just returning the favor with a little more honesty than he was planning to provide." I turned to Mia, who was still frozen in her seat. "And sister, congratulations on your pregnancy. I hope you and Michael are very happy together. You'll need to be, because neither of you will be welcome in my life ever again." The church erupted again, but this time it was different. Our father was on his feet, marching toward Michael with murder in his eyes. Michael's groomsmen were backing away from him like he had a contagious disease. The bridesmaids were looking between me and Mia like they couldn't process what was happening. But the most satisfying reaction came from Michael himself. He grabbed my arm, gently, desperately, and said, "Amanda, please. We can work this out. Don't destroy everything." I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. "Michael, you destroyed everything 6 months ago. I'm just cleaning up the mess." I handed the divorce papers to his best man, since Michael seemed incapable of taking them himself. "You're served. Your belongings are packed and sitting on the front porch of what used to be our house. You have until Monday to pick them up, or they'll be donated to charity." The crowd was a mixture of outrage, shock, and what I was pretty sure was some impressed applause from my college friends. My father had reached the altar and was standing protectively beside me, while Michael's family looked like they wanted to disappear into the church floor. "How long have you known?" Mia finally spoke, her voice small and shaky. "Long enough to document everything," I replied. "Long enough to protect myself legally and financially. Long enough to realize that I never really knew either of you at all." Michael made one last desperate attempt. "The baby, Amanda. Think about the baby. It's innocent in all this." "You're right," I said. "The baby is innocent. Which is why I've already spoken with a family law attorney about ensuring proper child support is paid. You'll be receiving those papers next week. Don't worry, I documented your income very thoroughly." The next hour was chaos. Families arguing, friends taking sides, the photographer capturing everything because I'd specifically told him this might not be a traditional ceremony. Michael and Mia left together, him practically carrying her out while she sobbed and our guests stared. My family surrounded me like a protective wall. My mother, who I'd been worried would be disappointed about the canceled wedding, kept saying, "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. So proud." My father looked like he regretted not teaching Michael a lesson with his fists, but he settled for making sure everyone knew exactly what he thought of men who cheat on their daughters. Sarah, my private investigator friend, appeared at my side. "How do you feel?" "Free," I said, and meant it completely. 6 months later, I'm living in the house Michael thought he'd be sharing with me. It's peaceful, decorated exactly the way I want it, with no compromises or negotiations required. My garden is thriving, my career got a promotion when I stopped being distracted by relationship drama, and my savings account is healthier than ever. Michael and Mia moved in together, as expected. What they didn't expect was that documenting his income so thoroughly would result in substantial child support payments that significantly impacted their lifestyle. The house they thought they'd be living in? They're renting a 2-bedroom apartment across town. I heard through mutual friends that Michael's parents cut him off financially after the wedding disaster. Apparently, publicly humiliating a daughter-in-law they genuinely loved was a bridge too far. Mia's relationship with our parents is complicated. They're trying to maintain contact for the baby's sake, but Sunday dinners aren't the same. The divorce was finalized 4 months ago. Michael tried to contest the adultery clause, but it's hard to argue with recordings, photographs, and medical records with timestamps. His lawyer advised him to settle quickly and quietly, which he did. I kept the engagement ring, not because I wanted to remember him, but because I wanted to remember me. The woman who was smart enough to protect herself, strong enough to stand up for herself, and brave enough to choose truth over comfort. Last week, I started dating someone new. David is a teacher, kind and honest in ways that feel revolutionary after Michael. When I told him the story of my wedding day, he said, "You're incredible. Most people would have just canceled quietly or gone through with it and been miserable." "Most people don't have 3 months to plan their revenge," I replied. "That wasn't revenge," he said. That was justice. He's right. I didn't destroy Michael and Mia's lives out of spite or anger, though I certainly felt both. I exposed the truth because they had chosen to build their happiness on my pain. They had decided that my humiliation was an acceptable price for their love story. I simply decided that their humiliation was an acceptable price for my freedom. The best part about the whole situation is that I sleep peacefully every night. No wondering if my partner is lying to me, no checking phones or questioning late nights, no pretending to be happy while dying inside. I know exactly who I am, a woman who refuses to be anyone's second choice, anyone's fool, or anyone's victim. Michael texts sometimes. Apologies, explanations, requests to talk things through. I don't respond. There's nothing left to say. The conversation ended when he pushed me aside at our wedding and told me it was my sister's moment. He was right about one thing, though. It was a moment. The moment I stopped being the woman who would accept betrayal and became the woman who demands better. The moment I stopped being their victim and became their consequence. And honestly, it was the best wedding gift I could have given myself. Not the marriage I thought I wanted, but the freedom I didn't know I needed. Not the man I thought I loved, but the self-respect I'd forgotten I deserved. Sometimes the best move isn't the one that gets you what you want. Sometimes it's the one that gets you what you deserve. And I deserved so much better than a man who would push me aside on our wedding day for my pregnant sister. I got better. I got justice. I got free. And they got exactly what they earned.